All right, let's talk about empathy. We use that word all the time. But what if I told you we might be thinking about it all wrong? Today, we are going to do a deep dive into what empathy really is, using the brilliant and super precise work of the philosopher Edith Stein. So let's just start with the big question, a puzzle that seems so simple on the surface. How do you actually know what someone else is feeling? I mean, really? Are you just making a good guess? Are you feeling some kind of emotional echo? Or is there something much more direct going on? So, here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with what empathy really is, then look at a whole new way of seeing it. We'll dive into the core of the idea, then, and this is crucial, we'll talk about what empathy isn't. After that, we'll see how other theories kind of miss the mark, and finally, wrap up with why all this philosophical detail really truly matters in our lives.
Okay, first things first. What is empathy really? It's time to move past the definition we all think we know.
Our go-to definition is that empathy means feeling what another person is feeling, right? But Edith Stein comes along and proposes this radical shift. She says, no, empathy isn't about feeling their feeling. It's about perceiving it. Think about that. It's not an emotional state you fall into. It's a unique kind of perception, a way of knowing, not just, catching an emotion from someone else. So, you might be wondering, how on earth did she get to this conclusion? Well, she had a secret weapon, a powerful philosophical method called phenomenology, which is basically a tool for looking at our experiences with totally fresh eyes.
Okay, so what is phenomenology? In the simplest terms, it's all about getting back to the raw experience itself. The goal is to describe things exactly as they appear to us, before we start layering on all our scientific theories, our cultural baggage, or our beliefs about what's really happening. It's about describing the what of an experience, not the why.
Stein uses this three-step method she calls bracketing. First step, you just acknowledge the experience. Let's say you see a friend who's clearly sad. Okay, step 2, and this is the magic trick, you bracket or set aside all your assumptions. Don't think about why they're sad, or what it means, or what you should do. Just suspend all that. And that allows you to do step 3. Focus on the raw experience of their sadness as it appears to you. That gets you to the very essence of the empathic moment.
All right, now that we have the method, we can finally get to the absolute core of Stein's theory of empathy. And it all comes down to this really important distinction she makes between two ways we experience things, primordial and non-primordial. So here's the key difference. Stein says your own feelings, the joy or sadness that starts inside you, that's a primordial experience. It's the original copy, live and direct. But in empathy, what you have is a non-primordial experience. You perceive your friend's sadness, but it doesn't originate in you. It's not your sadness. You're perceiving their original feeling, not making a copy of it inside yourself.
Stein said that empathy is a kind of act of perceiving, sui generis. Now, sui generis is just a fancy Latin phrase that means of its own kind or in a class by itself. For her, empathy isn't just a form of memory or imagination or some kind of logical deduction. No way. It is a completely unique, fundamental way we connect with another person's consciousness.
And she saw this as a dynamic, three-stage process. So picture your friend getting some bad news. First, their sadness emerges. It just kind of pops into your awareness. You see it on their face. Second, you enter explication. You start to explore that feeling. You let it guide your understanding of what they're going through, but all the while, it never becomes your sadness. And finally, in objectification, you grasp the whole thing. You understand it clearly as their distinct feeling.
Now, to make this idea even sharper, it's really helpful to get clear on what empathy is not. So let's draw some bright lines around this concept that can often feel a little fuzzy.
Okay, this is the classic one people get mixed up. Empathy versus sympathy. With empathy, I perceive your joy. The feeling starts and stays with you. With sympathy, hearing your good news actually sparks a brand new feeling of joy inside of me, for you. See the difference? Sympathy is my own emotional reaction, but empathy is my perception of yours.
This distinction is also so important. Empathy involves perceiving and actually understanding someone's feeling as their own. Emotional contagion is way more basic. It's just catching a feeling, like a yawn. You see a crowd getting hyped up, and you start feeling it too. You've caught the emotion, but that state is missing the key ingredient of really perceiving and understanding the other person's unique experience.
And finally, empathy is not about some mystical merging where you become one with another person. In true empathy, I am directed at you, perceiving your experience, but the I and the you stay separate and distinct. It's a connection between two people. That feeling of oneness is where those boundaries just dissolve. Stein argues that real empathy always respects that the other person is separate from you.
So, with this really sharp new definition in our pocket, we can look back at some of the classic ways people have tried to explain empathy and see why, from Stein's perspective, they all kind of fall a little short.
For a long time, people have tried to explain empathy in other ways. For instance, the theory of imitation says we unconsciously copy someone's facial expression, and that physical act triggers the feeling in us. The theory of association says that seeing a sad face just reminds us of a time that we were sad. And the theory of analogy suggests we're just making a logical guess, like, they look how I look when I'm sad, so they must be sad.
Stein's big critique of all these ideas is actually really simple, but it's powerful. Every single one of them describes an indirect process. It's a guess, an inference, a memory. They explain how we might figure out what someone is feeling, like a detective solving a puzzle. But none of them capture the actual experience we have, that direct, immediate perception of their feeling, which for Stein is the whole point of empathy.
Okay, I know, we have navigated some pretty deep philosophical waters here. But you might be wondering, why does any of this tiny nuance matter? Why is getting a precise definition so valuable?
So what's the real-world payoff here? While Stein's view gives us a path to a more authentic connection, it explains how we can genuinely access someone else's world without just projecting our own feelings all over it. It fosters respect because it honors the fact that their experience is uniquely theirs, and it builds self-awareness so we don't confuse our own sympathetic reactions with what they're actually feeling. Ultimately, it gives us a foundation for understanding that's based on clear, respectful perception, not just emotional confusion.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought to take with you. If Edith Stein is right, if empathy is a unique way of perceiving another's consciousness, not feeling it but seeing it, what does that change about how we listen to the people in our lives? What does it mean for how we try to connect? And what does it really take to truly and respectfully understand another person?